noisy. Anyways, my first one didn't come out. Hush, 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 hush. I am going to, why don't you just settle down for a moment here. Talk to you about selection towards a phenotype in keeping your flying mallards as close to the wild as possible. You're not going to do it 100%, but phenotypically you will. Phenotypically is the color, the expression of the genes. So, in other words, when birds are taken from the wild and they're brought into captivity, you have an isolated population, and there's going to be a drift in the genes there's a different selection process taking place, and basically is referred to as domestication. Now, first thing that tends to occur is that the bills tend to get shorter. That occurs also in the pintails. So there is a terminology that they use is called F1, F2, F3, and F4. These are first generations removed from the wild, second and third and fourth, and so on. Now, in your flying mallards, I don't know what number they're on, but they've been selected for flying, like for hunting preserves and things like that. But as a homesteader, they are excellent because they work their pec muscles when they're flying around and everything, so they're being worked compared to a rowan or some other bird, so that that chest muscle is being worked, and more so, and they also, in your day old, when you start them out, they require a game bird feed, which is 26%. So you're as close to the wild as you can, and they do not migrate as long as you take care of them. But I just want to show you something. Hush, hush. My first little guys, one of the things that does seem to change, doesn't make any difference in your rowing so much, but you see how there's one line going across the eye, and the other one is barely there? Now that one, I don't know what sex these are. I didn't sex them, and I'm not about to. These are closer to my F1s. I don't know how much, but they are. But my standard flying mallards are somewhere else along the line. So these ones are going to be bred into them to maintain that look. And I'm going to show you the difference. These guys are much older. See, this would be perfect if they were the same age. Okay. Here. These are females, and they're more prone to it, but if you have a drake like this, it's the same thing. You can see how there's a double line and a darker area around the eye. See how those two lines are there? That does not occur in a wild bird. I mean, in a wild mallard. That is something that kind of happens during the domestication process. In your rowans, you really don't care, but if this was a drake, when he grows up, the rest of his plumage is not going to be quite like the wild one either. His tail may tend to be darker or whatever. Another thing that does occur is that the bills tend to become shorter with each generation. So you kind of got to be careful with that too. If you want to maintain as much of the phenotypically look of the wild, you have to look for those things. In other words, this bird here, even though it's a female, I'm not going to breed from. I could use her as an incubator because flying mallards make excellent mothers. They do almost practically everything the same as a wild bird. But again, I would have to pull her eggs and give her another set from somebody else, but I'm probably not going to play with that. I just want this part of this grouping out of there and to keep it towards the first one I showed you. There's another process that occurs. This is barely on this one, but they will get on, well, let me just tell you. On the feet, they will turn, maybe occasionally get it like something looks like a bleach mark or a paler look or something like that. No, select away from it. The leg and the feet should be black, but not extremely dark. They do tend to get darker, but they should have a slight, like an overcast over the blackness, like an olive kind of color. That's natural. That's also true about the dark feathers. They tend to get darker too. I want to compare this, show you this one. That one's midway. Whoops, you stay down. This one's fairly decent. It does not have, but it's, you can see at the base of the bill, you can see where that dark mark wants to start again. So this one will probably be a keeper, but it will be bred towards the first one. That's the indication you have to maintain the look of the wild mallard. The other part that does seem to start to occur after generations, they tend to carry their bodies more of an upright state. That's fine, but generally the wild bird is parallel to the ground when it walks and swims and all that kind of thing. Some of this is a lot to do with the fact that they're taken from the wild and they're in a captive situation, and they're not at their waterfowl. Now they're suddenly more of a landfowl fowl, you know. So there's a give and take, as the mallard is so adaptable. It's throughout the world, so it adapts quickly, obviously, because there's so many domestic ones. I just wanted to give you a little bit of an insight here if you're going to do flying mallards, because you can select and make them look as possibly as wild as the wild are, because they're most beautiful. You know, they tend to get darker as they're more domesticated. You can see a rowan, they're much darker. They don't even seem camouflaged at some points. And where you can see a wild hen over here, a mallard, and it's really kind of pale and everything, and you can barely see it. It just blends in with the environment. But there's what is referred to as a genetic drift. In other words, you have a population that is removed from the wild. The genes within that one tend to perpetuate more so. And this is also important in your pintails and your other dabbler ducks, because first thing in those guys, the bills tend to get shorter. So I would say pay attention to your bill length. Always select for the larger bill, and keep that line out of, that second line that comes up there. Breed away from that, and then you should be okay as the phenotype and the look for them. And I think you'll be very happy, because it wants to change. It just I don't understand it completely, but I'm going to make a video with drawings and everything to show you this in greater detail as far as selecting for your next generation. This is referred to as culling. When I do these kind of things like I just showed you, each one of them little guys are going to have a little tag on them, and then I'm going to keep a record and make my notations there when they come out of the incubator, and then make a decision. And it also has the background of the family, because there's a number one thing, guys. If you didn't get anything out of all of this, don't interbreed, okay? Always, and this is like the best advice I can give you. Don't breed brothers and sisters. Don't breed, well, you can only breed father and daughter unless you're selecting something, but at the beginning, don't do any of that. Always outbreed. Okay? Under all conditions, don't inbreed, because what I just showed you will increase at a very faster rate. And even though your fertility may not be affected, in the long run, there's other things going to be going on there, and you're going to be guessing at this and that and the next thing, and you can't be certain. Outbreed, don't inbreed. And know your hatchers, know them people, and I talk to them. And for a new person, and you want, like, say 50, order 50 from this, let's see, and then maybe order another 25 from a different hatchery, so you're kind of going to get that mix, or you should. At least it's a shot at it. So interbreeding, close breeding, and those kind of things have different effects. Okay, so that's vitally important to always try to find new genes. That is probably number one, regardless of what I told you. But if you want to do what I said, make sure you're doing it on an outbreeding basis. And I know, so I like this one. This one is perfect, but they're brother and sister, so I'm going to put them together. Yeah, that's if you're into your show quality kind of things like that, but there's a tendency, just don't do it right now. If you want to, I can explain it at some other point, but you want to be successful, stay away from that. Just take one that you know they're unrelated and they got the similar characteristics. Two that are so damn perfect, but they're brother and sister, you might be bringing along some other problems along with that one in your next generation. One that's a little bit off and unrelated, the one that you want is going to have some babies that you want that's going to come out okay for your phenotypes. Okay, we'll see you again. And again, this is a really crappy, the color's wrong and everything. I just wanted to do this, you know. I'll do a more precise version of this in the near future.